You're plugged into Schaumburg Speaks, a podcast highlighting and celebrating local businesses and community in the Schaumburg area.
Hello and welcome to Schaumburg Speaks. We're here to supercharge your connection to local business and community, brought to you by the Schaumburg Business Association and Ian Ryan Interactive. I'm your host, Andrea Bewer, the president of the SBA, and today I'm beyond thrilled to spotlight a true icon of the Schaumburg's business community, Brian Burke. Brian is the mastermind behind the creation of the Schaumburg Business Association, known as the SBA, and Links Technology Solutions. Brian is not just a remarkable entrepreneur. He's been a pivotal force in Schaumburg for over 4 decades. Today, he's here to share the phenomenal journey of his company and how a spark of an idea in 2001 led to the founding of the Schaumburg Business Association. This idea transformed his technology recruiting business into one of the foremost tech hubs in Schaumburg. I've had the absolute pleasure of knowing Brian for nearly 30 years. Brian, I can't believe it's been 30. You've always been a community champion since your days leading NASI as the board chair in the 90s and running your own business, Woodfield Business Products. Plus, let's throw in a personal touch to today's story, his partnership with my mom, Lori Stone, who played a key role in launching the SBA back in 2001. So buckle up, listeners. You're not going to want to miss the insights Brian has to share with us all today. And he actually came here all the way from South Carolina to this cold weather. Brian, it's truly an honor to have you here today sharing your amazing story. How you feeling?
Cold.
You're cold, I know. And it's not even that cold yet, but I know. Remember, you've been here for well beyond 4 decades, longer than that, so you're kind of used to this.
Lived in Schaumburg for 50 plus years, but been in business 40 plus years here, about 45. But now I live in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and it's a whole lot nicer down there.
Yeah, we're going to share the story how you founded your company as well as Schaumburg Business Association. So why couldn't it have been somewhere warmer, Brian? That would have been nice.
Well, I guess that long ago, our company now, Links Technology, is 25 years old. We celebrated our 25th anniversary in September.
That's amazing. Okay, Brian, one question for you. For the listeners who might not be acquainted with Links Technology Solutions, can you today, because we're going to talk about the past soon, give us the inside scoop on what your company specializes in?
Well, we started off as strictly a consulting company, and in the late 90s, you may recall that companies were all kind of worried about Y2K. And I saw that these companies were spending enormous amounts of money hiring consultants because they wanted to make sure their clocks would start, their computers would run.
I know, everybody was nervous.
It was a crazy time. And at the same time, my son Jim was working for a consulting company, and he was a recruiter. And he used to call me all the time and say, Dad, what about this? What about that? What about this? Because he was fresh out of the Marine Corps. He wasn't accustomed to being in business. So I was very helpful with him. And I watched, and I used to ask him frequently, what the heck business is this? I didn't know anything about the consulting business at that time. Right around that time, his boss called me up and said, would you give me a hand with something? And I said, well, sure, what do you need? He said, I'm going broke. The bank wants my house, and something's terribly wrong, and I just need some help. And I said, well, as long as you're willing to show me your books and everything you're doing, I'll give you my advice. I can't promise. I wouldn't give money. But
yeah.
So I went to see him, and I looked at what he was doing, and I said, well, you're paying everybody too darn much money. I said, this is silly. You're paying your salespeople the same commission month after month on the same old customers. And you, in order to get new customers, they need an incentive to do it. You just keep paying them this much. He had some salespeople that were making as much as $200,000.
So, Brian, real quick, let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Just to get it into what Links Technology is today. So it was a consulting business Jim's boss called you. So we'll talk about the story and how it started in a little bit. But so what are the services, though, that you guys do now? Like, so you talked to him, you bridged that. So what did you bring on board?
Well, I helped him, and at that point then, I still owned Woodfield Business Products, and I had a partner, and I decided that it would make sense to create a new consulting company as part of Woodfield Business Products. Okay. And my partner is a wonderful guy, but he said to me, "Oh my goodness, Brian, I'm tired. I want to retire soon. I don't want to start a new business." And I said, "Vince, for heaven's sakes, we're still young guys." I was 58 at the time, I wasn't that young, but I wanted to keep going, and I could see what the consulting business would mean. It was a very, very profitable business.
So to add that to the services.
So I wanted to add it. He really didn't want to. And in the end, I said, well, then I'm going to start it. I'll have two businesses. And that's what I intended to do. So I had two businesses for 6 months. After 6 months, I saw that the consulting business was, to me, a gold mine at that time. And I brought my son Jim on with me right away, and my son-in-law Bob. So I had these two guys working for me. My wife said to me, it's a special story one day. She said, "How much are you risking on this new business?" And I said, "Everything." And she said, "Everything?" I said, "Honey, these two guys are as good as it gets. Don't worry about us. If this doesn't work, I could always get a job selling something." So the three of us started off together, and we did wonderfully well in that business. It wasn't hard for us. We're all good salespeople. We're all good relationship people. But I saw, and this is what you're getting at, I know, I saw here we are in Schaumburg. There's all these other services that we could be doing other than consulting. And so that's when we started building websites, doing custom software.
And that's what you specialize in today, and help desk and all that.
Right, and the help desk was because a friend of mine said, my boss is planning on hiring a young kid to do the help desk work for us. And I said, well, listen, we could do that. And we didn't have anybody doing it at all at the time. And he said, could you really? And I said, yeah. So I went over and I met with this guy, and I told him that we could do that help desk work for him. We could do it 24/7.
Perfect.
And he could pay us a flat rate. And I said, listen, there's no vacations. There's none of that stuff when you hire a company to do your support. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so you did. You're so cute. So basically, the services that you provide today are the help desk, website support, still the consulting businesses. So Brian, for listeners who might not be acquainted with Lynx Technology Solutions today, can you give us on what exactly your company specializes in now?
Well, we do everything technology. I always like to say, if we don't do it, you don't need it. We do network support for people, and we have customers with as many as 500 computers that we support. During COVID, it was one of the best times ever for us because all of our customers said, hey, everybody's got to go home and work from home. We need computers. We need the networks working. We need to do all of that. Right. And we were good at all of that. So that was actually a very plus time for us. But we also do all custom websites. And we have our own proprietary software called Tariff Shark that we developed that we sell to utilities around the country. We're the largest supplier of that product in the country.
Perfect. And I know you do the Schaumburg Business Association's website today, as well as other Chamber of Commerce's and many other companies in the area. So let's flash back to 2000, 2001. I know at the time, we had a North Suburban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, NACI. It was flourishing in Schaumburg back then. What was the reason for you and some of the other fellow business leaders, like the mayor, carving out a new path and establishing the thought of doing your own chamber? How did that all come about?
I was a member, and I had been for 20 plus years, of the Business Development Commission that the mayor appoints in Schaumburg. And we were at a meeting, and Hoffman Estates had just opened their own small chamber. And NASI had always been this regional chamber.
Right, and located in Schaumburg.
And they were in Schaumburg, but they were regional. They were trying to represent every community around there. And I never liked it. The mayor never liked it. A lot of people didn't like it. So we were at a meeting, and Larry Mazzefi, who is an accountant and a businessman in Schaumburg for 40 years, said, why the heck is it that we don't have a chamber? Why don't we? And I jumped up and I said, I agree. And so suddenly there was this excitement in that room. The mayor was there, the other business people were there, and they said, well, are you going to do this? And I said, absolutely, let's do it.
And did you decide to take the lead, initiative?
Well, I agreed to be the leader. I agreed to be the first chairman only if they let me pick my own board. I said, we can't have an election. I need people that are going to be the right kind of people that will work.
And make a commitment.
And everybody agreed, that's fine. Go ahead. You go, you do it.
You do it, Brian.
And so we met in the Marriott for probably 3-4 months because Jeff Peller was the manager at that time, and he was.
And where was he the manager of the Marriott?
Marriott?
Okay,
the Marriott.
Got it.
So that he was very supportive. Jim Lanowski was very supportive, and Jim Lanowski he was manager of Woodfield Mall. So here you got two of the bigger companies in Schaumburg already that love this idea, right? And so we meet over there. And so I know you wanted to ask me, well, where did you guys meet? Well, we met at everybody's office.
So this was you were just volunteering along, getting the other businesses together to form this idea of the Schaumburg Chamber, or whatever the name was going to be.
Right.
And
we had probably almost a year of meetings.
So was this in 2000? Like just going back? Because I know it launched in 2001.
Yeah.
So I know, so this idea, you obviously were part of NASI, you were part of other organizations. When did you decide that you needed to select the right person to spearhead this with you in my position? Like, how did that all come about?
So when did we hire your mother? Right?
When did you hire my mom? Like how, well, I know a little bit of this story that you're going to probably tell about, but how did you make that decision that you guys were ready to hire somebody to lead this initiative?
We had been working, none of us were being paid for doing this. Everybody was putting in a ton of time, and we were putting in, frankly, quite a lot of money.
Was it like 20 businesses, 10 businesses at the time?
I would say we had maybe 15 on our board that were ready to go with this, and everybody was willing to come up with some money, some significant money, as was the village. So we were meeting in my office, and I said, I think it's time we hired somebody to do some of this other stuff. Number one, we're not that skilled at it.
And you have your own jobs.
We got business, we got businesses to run. So we started kicking around the idea of who would we hire. Now, I had talked to your mother long before this just to ask her. She and I were pals.
Yeah.
We were friends back in the NASI days. We used to have breakfast together.
She was the marketing director
once
back
a week.
then.
Right.
Yeah.
So she and I were good friends. So I called her. I said, what do you think about this idea? And I think, honestly, if you ask her, she might say, well, I don't know if this is going to work. NASI was really big.
It was strong back in the day.
1,100 members, okay?
Wow.
So, it was doing really well. But I saw the struggles. She was working at the time. She had left there.
Right,
and
she was Greater O'Hare Association president.
Greater O'Hare, right, exactly. So I talked to her about it a little bit, and she said to me, you know who you might want to hire? You might want to hire my daughter.
So she was the one that suggested it.
She suggested you, and
it's kind of funny.
Now this is 20 years ago, and I said
24 years ago, Brian.
Well, whatever. I said, well, that's a thought. I didn't really take it seriously because you were kind of
I was at the Chicago Convention Bureau back then.
Yeah, right, yeah. But on the other hand, she said to me, you hire her, you get 2 for 1. I'll be right there to help her.
So she was kind of in the recruiting business when you talked to her back then. Kind of like what Links Technology was doing.
I said, well, we'll think about it. Well, then we talked to probably another 5 or 6 people. And then I was thinking that maybe you would be the right person. and I'm going to admit this, I lost your phone number.
Well, thank you, Brian.
So I called your mom, and I said, I can't find Andrea's number here. I want to talk to her again about that job. And she said to me, "You're really serious about this, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm serious." And she said, "Well, then I'm interested." Just like that.
See, nice
and I
mom,
said,
bait
"Oh
and
my,
switch,
yeah,
right? Yeah, no, that's funny. So
she really
yeah,
did." And I
she
said,
was the
well,
right person, for
listen,
sure.
come on." So she came to my office, and she and I talked for maybe an hour or so, and we talked about money and all of that. And then I had to go find the money. That was the deal. She was making a decent buck at Greater O'Hare, and we couldn't just pay her $20,000 or something.
Right.
So, but I found the money, and then we hired her.
So, how did you want to shape the future of business in Schaumburg? Like, what was your mission? So you hired Lori. What was your mission? Was because our name ultimately, I know, was Schaumburg Business Association, which people sometimes equate that for being regional, but I think the chamber name wasn't available at the time. So you guys came up with that. Like, what was your vision for this?
Well, we actually had a meeting, and I think this is before Mom was there, before Lori was there. And I said, look, we need a name. I was time, and Tom Palmer was our attorney. He knew where the name was. NASI had actually, and he had helped them. Yeah. They had actually bought the name, and so they owned Schaumburg Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And I said, well, NASI's probably not going to be around long after we get going.
Was your premonition correct?
So I said to Tom, I said, why don't you set up a meeting and let's talk to them about that name. And I can't remember the name of their leader at the time. It's a nice woman. Mm-hmm. And so she and I met over at the Marriott for breakfast, and I said, listen, we're interested in buying the name. And she said to me, well, we'll sell you the name and let you use it if you promise to be a part of NASI. And I said, well, we don't have any interest in that. We're going independent. You know that. This is going to be the Schaumburg Chamber of Commerce. And so she said, well, then my board's not interested in anything unless you'll be part of us. And I said, okay. And that was the end of that conversation. Mm-hmm. I always felt bad because I had a hunch a lot of people would jump. A lot of people wouldn't want to be a member of two chambers so
in
close.
the same city, right?
Yeah, and sure enough, that actually happened. And ultimately, they ran out of business.
Right. So building a foundation requires resources like a website and a communication system. So the Schaumburg Business Association needed that. And I know your company was starting to get into the other side of the technology business. How did Links get involved? Did you just offer this up? Was this something like with the Schaumburg Business Association?
Well, we actually built two websites for the Schaumburg Business Association, and we donated both of them. So that was just something amazing that I was doing because to go out and find, we didn't have the money to buy it,
You
and
just
go out
hired
and find
a staff
someplace
member,
else.
right.
So we built them for that. When you say communications, so are you talking about telephones or something?
No,
I mean, what do you mean?
I just mean because a website, that's when websites started to get really popular at the time, and they needed to have their mission and vision and access for their members to go. And I know Links Technology was the pivotal force behind all of that.
Well, we did that different, but what we did wasn't the website. That wasn't how we made the place popular. What we did was the Good Morning Schaumburgs. The Good Morning Schaumburgs were the difference between us and NASI.
And the other organization. Because that was what is Good Morning Schaumburg? For those listeners listening, Good Morning Schaumburg was a monthly breakfast that you all hosted where all the business leaders come together in the morning over breakfast.
Right. So the NASI, what had happened over the years, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but at their luncheons, all that happened was salespeople came. And I was a salespeople too. But the owners of companies stopped coming. That was the downfall of NASI because these luncheons became networking, period, okay, and nothing of any real value to the CEOs, they stopped coming. When we developed Good Morning Schaumburg, number one, I emceed every one of them myself. And, I made sure that we had the best speakers and that we ran on time. And, we had fun with that. And we did it every single month.
Second Tuesday of
at
the
Chandler's.
month, and it still is to this day.
So I think Good Morning Schaumburg became the biggest thing that we did. And then we had a fabulous trade show over at the convention center. It had just been built. And the village donated it to us, and we had 250 people there, businesses. Yeah. We picked up a ton of business ourselves. We had a 7,500 square foot booth. People went all out for that.
So, Brian, going back to 2001, you guys launched this with Good Morning Schaumburg and the Expo. Where was the original office located?
Well, the original office really was in my office.
Okay.
And ultimately, though, I recruited from one of our members, and her name's Laura Goldberg. And their company, gosh, I forgot the name of it.
HQ or?
It was an HQ company. Yeah. Yes, it was an HQ company. And I said, Laura, listen, we'll give you a membership. We'll give you a founding membership, which was $500. I said, if you let us office in your place. And they had the space. And so that's why we went there. So that's where Lori went then. And that's where she had a real office to work out of. And then we had our board meetings there and whatnot. And that worked really well.
So when was the moment when you and Lori realized it was time to expand, hire staff, and make the leap to a dedicated office space off of Old Schaumburg Road? How did that happen?
I think it was
how did you know
this is 20 plus years ago, but I would say it was because we had the money. We were finally reaching the point where we had enough members, we had enough money, and it only made sense. We had to. There was no way. So that's why we moved to a small office over there. It was a nice little office. It worked out okay for quite a while.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, that's actually a couple years after you moved there, I ended up working as the event director in that office off of Old Schaumburg Road. And when we ultimately ended up moving here, I was part of the team back then.
Yeah,
so crazy.
It was great. It worked out perfectly for us.
So, Brian, because of your legacy, your ideas, that Economic Development Commission that the mayor invited you to, where this idea spawned, how do you think from that moment to where we are today has changed the trajectory of Links Technology Solutions and the Schaumburg Business Association? How has that impacted
I think that a Chamber of Commerce, especially one like we've built here, like you've built here now. I've met more people, made more friends, made more business relationships doing that than anything else I've ever done. Even NASI was that way. It started off like that, and I can't tell you how many favors, how many people. My attorney came from NASI. Look, you and I have known each other 24 years and been friends.
It's been wonderful.
So it isn't so much that it changed our business, but it changed our lives. And I think it changes the lives of a lot of people. The people that get involved, come to the Good Morning Schaumburg, that type of thing, go to the Toast of Schaumburg. I don't think they ever forget that. I certainly never have.
Yeah, and the friends that you had. And Brian, you are truly a community leader with a proven track record of success, who years later, your legacy has made Schaumburg Business Association what it is today. And you've given so much, but as you mentioned, you've gotten a lot in return just by giving back. What advice can you give to a small business just joining the chamber to get the most of their membership? What's the first thing that they should do when they join an organization like this?
Well, the very best example I can give you is that Jeff Miller, a former chairman of the SBA, called me. He was my son Jim's neighbor. And he asked Jim, what should I do? He had quit Motorola, and he was going to start a business selling signs, a little sign business. And Jim said, well, you ought to talk to my dad. So he called me, and I said, the first thing you ought to do is get your butt over there to the SBA and join and get involved and go to everything you possibly can. And I would tell you, if you ask Jeff Miller today, he would tell you that he owes a ton of his success to the SBA for the time that he puts in.
But he puts a lot of time in, and you all have. And I would say, too, as the new president of the Schaumburg Business Association decades later, that truly by giving, and I see a lot of the members like yourself, you get so much back in return. And
I think somehow that gets lost. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
You know, guys like Jeff learned that quickly. I learned that from people way back when I first joined Rotary and I first joined NASI. That was 1978. And they told me from the beginning, get involved, do something, give something back, and you'll see. And I can't tell you how much it's enriched my life.
That's incredible. But most importantly, you've enriched so many generations of business people, including myself. And now I get the incredible privilege of not only still working with Lynx Technology, your son, your grandchildren, and we all can't wait to give back the legacy that you brought the Schaumburg Business Association, as well as my mother, Lori Stone, and many, many others, the late Mayor Al Larson, to continue your mission of giving back and helping others as we look to the future here. Brian, I just have a question for you. So obviously I'm here, and I, again, have had the privilege to take on a position that my mom once held, and I also had the privilege of working with family. Tell us how working with family has helped build Lynx Technology to where it is today.
Yeah, from the start, I knew that my son Jim and my son-in-law Bob were the smartest guys I knew and the hardest workers I knew. Also, the best golfers I knew.
Well, golfing is really important, especially to the Burkes.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we started just the three of us, Jim and Bob and I, and here we are, still together 25 years later.
Unbelievable.
We play golf together. We go on trips together. My daughter, Katie, I have two wonderful grandchildren, and Bob's daughter, Cameron, now works for us, and Jim's son, Brian, also works for us. And so I see the business moving on and just growing and being there forever. That to me will be the best thing that ever happened. Right.
Yeah, that's great. So many people are familiar with Lynx Technology Solutions, but for those that aren't and your business, how can listeners contact you or your company if they're looking to recruit some amazing people in the technology industry, or if they need help with their small business to large business?
Yeah, I think, our phone number, is 847-252-7600, and our website is lynxtechnology.com. But I think that where we are probably strongest is with little businesses, small people that can't possibly know what the heck to do. The computer's broken, the email's down.
You sound like me. That's me every day.
Yeah.
Calling your help desk.
And you call my help desk, and somebody will answer the phone and say, calm down, Andrea. I'll show you what to do.
And they do that. And they've done that.
And they'll jump right on, and they'll take care of it. That's one of my favorite parts of our business. But I don't want to not tell you about our Tariff Shark business, because it is an amazing product that we developed, and this is from hiring people from Schaumburg to do the development on this. This proprietary software is one of the best things we've ever done, and we don't know much about it here in Schaumburg because it's all over the country.
So could they find information on that on
your website? Well, it's on our website. It's called Tariff Shark, but it's only for utilities. So utilities like Commonwealth Edison, et cetera, those people are required to do so much crazy reporting to the federal government. And we've developed a piece of software that cuts the time to do that, not only in half, probably by 90%. So it's a great product, and we've never lost a customer. It's an excellent
incredible.
customer.
So for those that are listening, check out all the great systems. You also could go to schaumburgbusiness.com, look up Links Technology, and get information to finding Links Technology Solutions. Thanks to Links Technology Solutions for setting up our website. So this has been such incredible insights, Brian, and I just want to thank you for sharing your journey and enlightening us on the evolution of the Schaumburg Business Association. It's really inspiring for me to see how an idea that you all had and the founding members, including my mother, to see where it is today. And as I said, it's truly a privilege to be the new president here. And again, I can't wait to give more Brian Burke Businesses of the Year awards at our toast, and the Lori Stone Women of the Year, and so many others that have just made us to where we are today. So thank you, Brian.
Well, I'm very, very happy for you. Congratulations on being the new president. I know you'll do an excellent job.
Or I'll get grounded.
Call us anytime. Yeah, call us anytime.
And
we're
we will.
Always there. We're always there.
Thank you, Brian.